I wasn't really planning on a run. Wait, what?
Thank you, Chad, for letting me know that I forgot to unmute us.
Oh, every Tim. Yeah, one of these days we'll figure it out. I'm Pete. I'm one of the hosts, and this is DnDTime Talks, where we discuss all things Dungeons and Dragons.
And I am the other host, Jeremy. I just want to start things off with a big thanks to Fraynor, our old pal Tom in the chat. Thank you for your subscription, bud.
Thanks a lot, man. Thank you.
Howdy,
hello, everybody. Yeah. Also, it's the sexy jazz Pete and Jeremy's D&D time theme switch. That's what it is.
Entirely Pete.
I made that. Jeremy does almost all the other tech stuff, but that's the one thing that I'm good at. So yes, we're going to dive in. DnDTime Talks. It's a weekly talk show we do here where we do all the Dungeons and Dragons discussions. We got all sorts of topics. Episodes last for an hour. That's a hard guarantee within 15 minutes. And the topic that we're going to be discussing today is bards. The second in our series, we're going to be going through and analyzing the classes of Dungeons and Dragons. But yeah, we're doing bards today.
Yeah, and once we're through with the whole class kind of mini-series we're going through, we have a whole bunch of other ideas to kind of delve into, things like using homebrew content and other non-Wizards of the Coast stuff, Roll20 tips and tricks, which might just be a YouTube video about me going over Roll20 stuff, feats in 5th edition, and all sorts of other things.
But if you have an idea that you want to talk about, let us know on the chat or by messaging us on Twitter. Yeah, I read the teleprompter on that one, but you don't have to let us know on the chat. You can let us know in the chat. But yeah, I think without further ado, let's jump into our discussion right away. And feel free to chime in and join in the conversation if you have any questions or comments or just anything.
We got Ranger hate going on already. I think this is going to be whenever we talk about a non-Ranger class, there's going to be a lot of Ranger hate. And then when we get to the Ranger, there's going to be exclusively Ranger.
I can't wait to do Ranger. I'm like low-key really excited about Ranger. Me and Jeremy are going to come out swinging, just all positive discussion of the Ranger. No criticism whatsoever. It's a perfectly designed class. But anyway, yeah, tonight's topic is bards. We said this with barbarians, but some of you might think we go a little bit too rudimentary, but we think it's a good idea to discuss basics on things and really keep that foundation. So we're going to talk about the bard. It is the second class in the player's handbook, and I feel like bards, they're not like one of the most popular classes, but I feel like bards have a fan base that is really loyal to bards. Like there are a lot of bard mains out there. I don't know if you've had the same experience, Jeremy.
Yeah, and I mean, a big part of that, right, is kind of cult following the bards have put together, which cult of personality, that is what you go for as a bard. But the thing about, like, I think really makes or breaks bards for players, because some players hate bards. Hate them with a passion. It's the versatility, right? Bards are incredibly versatile. They are the jack of all trades, master of none. They're good at a ton of different things.
Absolutely. I would say that the bard has the widest range of utility of any class in 5th edition.
Oh, absolutely. It's just the kind of thing where if there's any one thing that you want to be the absolute best at least mechanically, right? When you're talking about spell casting or attacking with weapons or or skills, you're not going to be the best. There will always be a class that does it better, but you can do all of it, which to some people, they want to be the very best like no one ever was. And to some people, they want to do it all.
They want that jack of all trades. They literally have a feature called the jack of all trades that we'll talk about. But yeah, I think that really does a good job of summarizing their class. It's in the class description what they do, which I guess is just good design and writing there.
Yeah, and I mean, in the chat, we got Mr. Plunderloot saying they can act like any class almost. And that's true. You can build a bard to do anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And so as we go through, we're going to be talking about the bard's kind of strengths and weaknesses. We're going to be talking. We're going to go through the early levels of the class, discuss the feel of it as it levels up, and then the role playing opportunities that playing a bard offers. And we'll talk subclasses. Specifically, we're going to do the two that are in the player's handbook, the lore and valor subclasses. We may offhandedly do some Xanathar's Guide with everything, but we're not going to focus on Xanathar's Guide in this or any of the future class reviews.
In this series. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to dive into Xanathar's at a later kind of series, I think. But yeah, if you've ever wanted to play a bard or are currently playing a bard or anything like that, this episode is for you. If you really hate bards, you might still have fun hating on bards. I don't know, man.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I can never meet anyone who's just like, man, bards are the worst.
Oh, I knew. My very first dungeon master hated bards.
Really? I just love bards.
Anywho, yeah, and by the way, if any of you are interested in more information once we're kind of all done with today's episode of Talks, you can find a whole bunch of information out about bards. Check out the Player's Handbook. It's a great resource. You can go read some like graphic novels or something, or other bards. Pete, what are some other bards?
Well, I think a great place if you want to look for someone to be your inspiration for a bard, I think more than anyone else, any other class, you can look at real life people. You can look at the great musicians of history and be like, I want to play a bard based on, Johann Sebastian Bach, or I want to play a bard based on Mick Jagger or David Bowie, what have you. There's a lot of great real life inspiration, I think, for bards, since they are a class, unlike most other classes, that more people have the actual skills that bards have in the real world than any other skill you get from classes. You don't run into a lot of wizards in real life, but sometimes you do run into musicians.
True facts. So, I mean, without further ado,
someone Raventail suggested a Jack Black bard. That sounds amazing.
Oh boy. That'd be Raven Black Talon, please. Raventail Black Talon. Oh, jeez. I screwed it up after trying to correct you. Well,
anyway. Correct. So let's start off with the basics. So the bard's kind of defining feature, one thing that all bards get, doesn't matter how you build it, a lot of skill. As part of their kind of niche of versatility that they have and utility, one of the things that's cool about the bard is when you're picking your skills, you get to pick any 3 skills that you want. You also get 3 musical instruments. We'll talk about that a bit more later as we're talking about kind of the role-playing options, because personally I'm of the opinion that you don't necessarily have to do playing musical instruments doesn't have to be a huge part of who you are. It's how you do your spellcasting, but we'll get back to that. But I think it's just really cool that bard lets you pick whatever you want for your skills. It's the most customizable in that sense. Your character is exactly what you want it to be. It's just cool. They get some light armor and weapon proficiencies, which means that they're not going to be completely useless in a physical scrap. They know how to wield simple weapons or even a martial weapon like a rapier. They can wear leather armor, so they're not going to be completely walked over in a fight. If you're building a bard, your primary stat is going to be your charisma, because that is what powers your bardic inspiration, which we'll talk about, and your spell casting. Traditionally, and I think what the book recommends is dexterity as a second one, but I think after charisma, it's just kind of anything goes. It's just very versatile in the way that you can build it. And bards are the first spell casting class that we're going to be talking about. They are a full casting class. Unlike, say, the Paladin or everyone's beloved Ranger, which get kind of like a half or third spell casting suite. They don't get access to all the high-level spells. Bards get spells every time they level up. So that's kind of the defining feature and where a lot of their power and even more of this kind of versatility is going to come from.
Yeah, and part of the... So Pete mentioned earlier, right, that bards are very open with their skill choices. They can pick any 3 skills. They get a whole suite of musical instruments. part of the challenge with role playing as a bard is actually adapting that openness, right? Bards have an extremely open role play space. We see Raven Blacktalon again in the chat, who was playing a her bard was a poet, and she wrote poems for each of their spells, which is awesome. It's a really cool way to tie in that poet theme with your spell abilities. And a lot of the times it can be daunting, especially for a new player playing a bard. Like,
Yeah,
oh,
for
do
sure.
I have to come up with all of these witty limericks? Do I have to sing songs? Do I have to do X, Y, or Z? And deciding upon what space you want to RP in, what you want to hold on to, what battles you want to pick, basically, with your role play. That's a big and a very difficult actual step when you're playing a serious bard character.
For sure, I think bards have a little bit of a stigmata about them, much like how paladin players are expected to be very strict to their alignment. Bard players are expected to do certain things in roleplay and to add a certain flair to the table that other people really aren't. Other classes don't have that association, I think, which isn't necessarily true. Like, a lot of people choose to roleplay bards like that because, like I mentioned before, real people have these skills. So if you're a musician, that's an awesome opportunity to show off your guitar skills and actually play out some of your songs like your character would. And that's really fun, and I love that. And would encourage people, if you can do that and that sounds fun to you, to do so. But that's not something that you have to do if you want to play a bard. It's just as okay if you're not like comfortable singing or you don't have the ability to write poetry, to just talk out what you do, like, pretty much everyone else at the table does.
Yeah, I mean, Pete mentioned a couple great things you can do if you have those skills in real life. But you can just easily say, my bard says an insulting thing at them or sings a happy song. You can just say that. That's perfectly fine. There's no requirement, right, to be an esteemed poet or musician or anything when you play a bard. And actually, a great option in chat, Macabre Derek.
I was going to say, just saw that one.
One of my players did, and just rip lyrics from songs that were appropriate to the spells you use. That's awesome. There's nothing wrong with that. So, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Pete.
No.
You went from the middle.
No, I didn't have I wasn't going anywhere. I guess. So yeah, we'll get in real deep on some of the role playing options that bards do have. But let's talk about what bard's role is. Bards have two kind of characteristic traditional roles, and their kits lend themselves most if you want to quote unquote optimize your bard. These are the two things that wizards kind of design the class to do, and those are to be a support, to take skills and allies that kind of take skills and abilities, that boost up your allies and help them. Their bardic inspiration feature, their bread and butter, will help with that. And again, we'll talk about more about that in a bit, as well as to be the party face, to interact with things, because you're a high charisma character and you get abilities that boost your skills up to even higher points. Usually the party will want their bard making all those important persuasion checks to local nobles. All the discussions that you don't want to mess up will often get trusted to bards.
I love the stuff going on in the chat right now. The Fox in the Box talking about a bard drawing their spells into existence.
Yeah, that is cool. That is awesome, and that's something that I think is a great way if you want to play kind of against type, because if we're talking if the barbarian's kind of cliche type was the dumb musclehead that loves violence, then the bard's kind of cliche type is the sort of flamboyant performer who always takes center stage and really talks, and it's always assumed that they're just kind of a musician that loves to perform. You don't have to you don't have to do that. I think that artist idea is awesome. You can do pretty much any kind of art. You could work into your bard thing in some way. You could be a singer, you could be a poet, as someone mentioned, you could be an orator. someone actually in D&D Time, a quick side story, he made his bard a character that was the movie announcer at the beginning of movies, which I thought was really funny. And maybe that doesn't have enough legs for a full campaign. It works awesome in D&D Time.
Maybe it does.
Or maybe it does.
In a world where this voice, my bardic power.
Well, that was exactly what he did. If it was a like, if you needed to inspire somebody to be like, one dwarf, one athletics check, and everything is on the line. It was just a good gimmick, and so there's a lot of cool ways you can mess with the way that Bard plays to make it your own and find something that you like about it.
Yeah, and you don't have to play a very flamboyant character. Obviously, with a bard, your highest stat is going to be your charisma, but that doesn't have to define how you RP your character. You can play a shy and reserved bard perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. For example, your bard might just be a lover of stories. That is what you do. You collect stories, you learn stories. You're with the party to record this epic story that is being told through their exploits. Well, maybe you're the kind of guy and you sit in the bar in the tavern in the back room, and that's what you do. You just listen to the stories being told in the tavern. And there is nothing wrong with playing that kind of bard. That is an awesome bard. That's a really cool character. And yeah, so just we've talked a lot about the very expressive outward bards. I just wanted to make sure we didn't miss that. Like, you can do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh gosh, Pete, do you see that one in the chat? Farfel. Farfel13, one of his favorite concepts for a bard is the propagandist.
Interesting. I would have to think about how I would want to build and play that, but I can definitely see the potential there.
And so I guess the next question, right? We've talked about a whole ton of different ways that you can express your creativity, right? Your bardic powers. But the question is like, well, Pete, why do you do it?
Yeah, that's another important thing, that when I think playing any class, you have to figure out, if you're an adventurer, you're a very strange person. You're a very strange person. And you have to think about, why are you the way that you are? So you can ask yourself questions like, why do you practice your art? Why do you perform? Why do you do what it is that you do? From a role-playing perspective, a lot of characters, and I think a lot of characters end up like this way, and they just kind of think this way, and they are because I am good at it, or because I like music. And those are sort of weak role-playing answers. So really think about what it is that motivates your character. So maybe when you ask the question, why do I perform? Because I've been alone most of my life, and the attention that I garner allows me to forget that for a moment. That's a much stronger role-playing answer. It says something about who the player is as a character. And another example, you could answer that question with, my mother was a renowned violinist, and I wish to preserve her memory by performing her music. I'm just fumbling my words a lot tonight. And that's another really strong role-playing answer. It says that this person cares about tradition and about family, and it informs why you do what you do.
And that is one of the hardest things to determine and really stick to. With such a wide open space, really sticking and finding and deciding upon that motivation can be one of the hardest things playing a bard.
Yeah, Bard kind of has the opposite problem that the Barbarian had.
Oh, yeah. Well, and speaking of that, with the Barbarian having very little in the terms of RP tools baked into their kit, the Bard has a ton. A lot of their features are features that, like, are things that you can roleplay, are things that you can do and interact with on that kind of a level. And yeah, the real challenge comes in contextualizing how your character does these things, and with the wide open space you have to play with class. So like last time, and I think like all of these series that we're going to do on the classes,
we'll do this every time.
We're really going to focus on the first 7 levels. The vast majority of D&D campaigns end before level 7, and while post level 7 is very important, if you've been playing up through level 7, then you've gotten an idea for how your character is at this point, and you can just continue that through level 20. And if you're starting at level 7 and you've never played the class before and you have no idea what to do, you shouldn't do that. You should start at a lower level.
I'm inclined to agree.
We're gonna just jump right in. Pete, so with Bard, right? We had Rage as their core thing.
Yes.
What do Bards have?
Bards they have two core things, and this is something that's core to a lot of classes, but let's start off by talking about their spellcasting. I'm going to talk a little bit about what the mechanics of spellcasting are and how it works for context for everyone who isn't aware. But it's going to show up in a lot of classes. We'll probably only cover it in this episode. We won't go so in depth on how it works, but just so you know what we're talking about when we refer to them later on. So they get this feature. It's called spellcasting, and it represents their ability to use their magic. They're going to get At the beginning of the game, they're going to get a couple of these things called cantrips. Cantrips are very small magical effects that can be cast at will. Like I said, at level 1, the bard gets 2 of these things. And what at will means is often as you like. The idea is that these are so simple, they don't take really any of your magical energy. You can just do them forever. And some basic things like prestidigitation, which allows you to just create sparks or like a little puff of wind. Parlor tricks. You can create, a hand that's able to pick up little objects. Just, like 10 pounds of telepathy in a short range is essentially what it amounts to. So that's what a cantrip is.
Basic magical attacks, like I shoot a bolt of fire at someone,
yes,
also would fall under that kind of purview.
Indeed.
They're not powerful spells, but they're things that you can, whenever it is your turn, you can use your turn to, if you would like. And
we'll talk about this more, but all of these things are powerful role-playing tools. There's so much. Oh god, I'm looking at.
Oh my god.
Anyway, spell slots. We're going to be talking about spell slots. At level 1, the bard starts out with 2 first-level spell slots. Every spellcasting class kind of follows the same progression in terms of when they get their spells and how they improve. But what basically a spell slot is just the mechanical representation of how much magic you can put out before you get tired and you can't do it anymore. But Bard starts out with 2 first-level spells. And when we're talking first-level spells, these are ones that are more powerful than your cantrips. You're going to get things at first level like, detect magic, disguise self, very iconic spells that you really associate with D&D. And then
we're not going to spend a time going over these individual spells and what they do. If you want to learn more about them, check out the Player's Handbook. You can read them up there. D&D Beyond has a lot of them. You can just type in the name of the spell and look them up. We might briefly describe what they do, but we're not going to go into a lot of depth on spells. Don't have the time.
Yeah, we could spend episodes. We could spend episodes and episodes going over spells. And then there are the numbers. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, the one thing I just want to mention for people who are completely new to spells, which there may be a few of you in the chat, or maybe new people in the future watching this recording. Spell level and your character's level are totally different things. A level 1 spell isn't necessarily something that a level 1 character would get. In this case, they get it basically, but over far and away, spell level does not equal character level. In general, the highest level spell you can cast, if you are a spell casting class like the Bard is going to be half of your actual character level.
Fox in the Box in chat asks, what's the benefit of choosing the other spellcasting classes over Bard if it's so OP? I'm actually not of the opinion that the Bard is overpowered. I don't think that the Bard is. The Bard has this one niche that it fits, which is the Bard can be built however you want it to be, but I don't think it'll ever be the best. Like, if you want to just, be the best at casting spells, you probably want to play like a wizard or, a sorcerer. If you want to be the best fighter, you probably don't want to play a Valor Bard. You want to just play a fighter. So I think it's for the people who want all those different options, but don't mind the little bit of the power drop that comes on the top end from it.
Well, and just to specifically answer the question, Pete, you say that the wizard or the sorcerer is better, but the reason why, a wizard has way more spells than a bard. So they have a lot more options in that regard. And for example, a sorcerer has their meta magics, their ways of, and we'll talk more about these when we talk about sorcerer, but their ways of actually influencing and changing their spells. All the wizard classes have their own augments to their spells that make them better. The bard doesn't. The bard just has the spells. They don't have features that make those spells better or do extra things in conjunction with them. And so that's why we say the bard is a worse spellcaster. In that it's a less effective spellcast. It doesn't get these extra bonuses that the other classes would get.
Indeed. Yes. So the last thing, just about spellcasting in general, those are the spells that are your known spells. The bard and each class kind of handle this a little bit differently, so we'll probably mention it for each class as we go through. But for the bard, they just learn spells, and once they know them for the rest of the game. As you level up, you have opportunities to kind of change your spells here and there in small doses, but for the most part, you just know some spells, and you can cast them using the spell slots that you have. So pretty straightforward.
Spells for bards offer a huge degree of role-playing opportunity, whether it be your cantrips that become kind of your signature move, a very classic one. Well, I guess we'll talk more about them later. But whether your cantrips become your signature moves, or you take more utility spells that, I guess what I'm saying is, for your bards, you can pick spells that are very iconic to you, and because you don't swap them out as you level up, or in between days even, you have the same ones every day, they become very iconic to your character.
Indeed.
Ugh, wow, I choked on that one.
No, it's all good. And for all spellcasters, your choices matter a lot. And I think there's kind of two major schools of thought on how to pick your spells. Like, do I pick the spells that I just kind of like, or do I pick the spells that say who I am? And I think both of those are perfectly acceptable ways to play. I'm not like touting one or the other. If you just want to pick like spells that you think are going to be useful, I think even that says something about who you are. It's like, I'm a utilitarian. These are the things that I need in order to adventure and do the things that I do. But the bard spells have a lot of flavor. For bard, they have a lot of things that involve kind of beguiling the mind. They get a lot of options that, they get a lot of options that are heavily utility, that allow for stealth and kind of enhancing skills, things like that. And they also get a couple of damaging spells. It's not really the focus of their spell lists. And those ones that they do get, they usually involve sound, things like, big blasts of thunder, like Thunderwave or Shatter. Thunderwave.
Thunderwave's a great.
Indeed. Bards get 4 unique spells. I don't quite understand why bards didn't get 9 unique spells. It seems like they should just have one for each level, or 10 rather, counting the cantrip. But they get 4. And at level 1, you get access to 2 of those already. And those are Vicious Mockery, a cantrip. I wanted to just talk about these if we have time, just because we'll only have to talk about them for bard. Vicious Mockery is a super popular cantrip. I've never seen anyone not have fun and enjoy Vicious Mockery when they pick it, because it has so much role-playing opportunity behind it. Basically, it's you hurl magical insults at someone, and it causes them to take psychic damage, and it messes up their next attack. There are tons of ways to role-play it. Maybe you are distracting people. Maybe you're just saying, hey, idiot. And I'm sure you all can be a lot more colorful with your Vicious Mockery than hey, idiot. Or maybe you're just playing like really awful chords on your guitar that sound bad. But whatever it is, it's a cool and simple spell. The other one that Bard gets that's unique is a first level spell that they can take called Dissonant Whispers. It deals some damage and frightens something as these like horrible kind of grating music fills the ear of the person that you're targeting with it. So
it's a little creepy.
Yeah, it's creepy. It's a little bit spooky. I'm sure you could come up with a way to make it less spooky if you wanted to, if that's not your flavor. But I think as written, it's implied to be a little bit spooky.
Yeah, and I guess for now, let's jump on to their next feature. Another thing that they get at level 1 that's super, super iconic to the Bard Similarly to how the barbarian got reckless attack, the bard gets inspiration. Now, if you know a little about D&D, but not a ton, you might be thinking, wow, inspiration's really good. I get to roll dice twice. That's not how Bardic Inspiration. Bardic Inspiration is a completely different ability. It is powered by your charisma modifier, just like your spells. So another reason charisma should be your top stat if you're playing a bard.
Mm-hmm.
And what it allows you to do is it allows you to, as a bonus action on your turn, so bonus action, it doesn't disrupt you casting one of your other spells or anything like that, or attacking with your sword.
Good design.
You can pick an ally that you can see, and you can give them one of your Bardic Inspiration dice. And that starts as a D6, which is just a basic 6-sided die. I don't have one right next to me. And as you level up, it becomes a bigger die. And what that ability does is sometime in the next 10 minutes, that player, whenever they roll a d20 roll, so an attack roll, an ability check, or a saving throw, they can choose to expend that die to roll it and add it to their roll. And they can do that after seeing whether it not whether it succeeds or fails, but after seeing what they rolled. So they can roll their attack and be like, oh, wow, I got a 10. That might hit. I'm going to add the Bardic Inspiration to that.
Guarantee it.
Inspiration is an awesome ability. It feels really good. A lot of bards take that as like, I sing a little thing and it inspires you. Or, a great one, actually, Farfel, who was in the chat a little while ago, in his campaign, one of the NPC bards, Bardic Inspiration was just the finger gun. And boom, you got a D6 of Bardic Inspiration. It was just awesome,
Yeah, it's simple.
So many different ways. So yeah, it's a really awesome. It's one of those tools that you can take and fit to that concept that you're building, whether it be poetry, music, just being a suave character or whatever.
Yeah, I think you summed it up pretty well. That's Bardic Inspiration.
Oh, great example. We got Adrian P in chat. Speaking of which, hope those streams are going good, man. I hear you almost beat They Are Millions today. But Blaine made me my food. What did I miss? Well, you didn't miss a ton. We're talking about the bard. Actually, in that case, you probably missed a lot. But Blaine just made you food. That could be your Bardic Inspiration. Maybe your bard ability is you give people food, and you're a chef, and you take extreme pride in your food.
A cookie for your inspiration. That sounds amazing. That sounds like Pjork.
Campaign.
That almost sounds like Pjork. Radical.
But yeah, it's an iconic ability, super powerful, core to their kit, and a way that you can totally make that your own.
Cool. So.
Cool,
shall we second level?
Yeah, at second level you get some more stuff. First, you have 3 first level spells.
Yeah, get another spell. It's not the most exciting thing, but hey, you can do more of those things that you do. You get to pick out a new one as well. Feels good every time you get a spell. And then you get an ability I mentioned before, which is Jack of all trades. It's kind of it's mostly a mechanical buff for you. There's not a lot of heavy role playing that's really implied with Jack of all trades, but it reinforces that kind of bard idea of versatility. It has flavor. It's good flavor for the class overall. And what it does is you add half your proficiency bonus to all of your skill checks that don't already use your proficiency bonus. So it's just I'm good at everything at least a little bit.
Yeah,
it's simple.
Minimized.
Really simple. And then the other thing that you get at level 2 is an ability called Song of Rest. This ability, I don't know, I rarely see it used. I think we'll talk about this more when we talk about the Bard Capstone, but I think some of this comes from D&D not really quite getting how people actually play 5th edition. But basically what it does is when you all take a rest, you can use soothing music to heal your allies a little bit. And, they get some extra hit points, which means they can spend less hit dice when they rest, and you can flavor that however you want. Maybe it's not soothing music, maybe it's soothing words, maybe it's soothing finger guns. You can apply a lot of the way that you inspire people also probably to your Song of Rest, just like a more mellow version of your inspiration.
Yeah, and one last thing about the Song of Rest. Song of Rest is either incredibly good or really, really bad, depending on the kind of game you're playing. Either it'll never come up, or it'll be super helpful if you're playing like a really intense, like by the rules,
like if you're playing like a really like adventure, sort of dungeon crawly, like traditional. I picture like Song of Rest seems like it would be really good in like an D&D game.
Well, yeah, or if you're crawling through a mega dungeon, right, and you don't want to just rest for 8 hours ever, as long as you can help it, Song of Rest becomes actually very helpful.
Yeah, it has a it has niches, but I'm personally I'm just not a big fan of the ability, which perhaps came.
What? Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, what comes next after Song of Rest?
Well, after Song of Rest, we're going to be talking about third level, and third level is a huge deal. You get so much stuff as a bard at third level. For starters, odd-numbered levels for casters are always going to be big, because every other level, you get access to spell slots of the next level up. So at third level, we only had first level spell slots. Now we got second level spell slots. Your total is just a big power spike for casters. Because not only that, you get another first level spell slot, and you get 2 of the now more powerful spell slots. So your total spell slots have doubled, and 2 of them are better than your old ones. That's sick.
Yeah, that is to underscore just how massive that difference is, your level 1 spell, Thunderwave, literally does twice as much damage if you cast it at level 2. And you've now made 2 of your spells that second level. So you've just amped up your damage by a huge amount. On top of that, there are a lot of really cool second level spells that are now available to you that weren't available before.
And I think second level spells is where you really start to get some spells that are flavorful and can really define how you play as a character. Some cool ones that are available for bards, things like Crown of Madness, or suggestion spells that like manipulate people, detect thoughts, which is kind of a more subtle version of the same sort of thing. And then there are things like invisibility and silence, if you want to go with this kind of utility stealth route, that bard kind of gets a lot of tools for. Or you could just take a spell like Shatter, which is just huge damage, loud noise, center of attention kind of spell. So it's just a lot of flavor at this point.
Yeah, and for most of those spells that we mentioned are self-explanatory, like invisibility, you get what that does, it makes you invisible. The first spell, Crown of Madness, that's like a lesser dominate, right? It's kind of a lesser mind control kind of ability. And you get that at your third level. That's a really awesome.
Yeah, just a ton.
Going for that manipulative kind of bard, like the propagandist that was mentioned earlier, or something like that. It's a really neat tool to get that early.
A lot of potential, and how you pick these spells will define your character. And this is a side note, and I think we'll probably talk about this a lot as we do different casters, but when you see a spell, you can look at it and think to yourself how you want to make that spell your own, because maybe your spells function a little bit differently than other people's. You can have a spell do the same thing but flavor it to make it feel cool for your character. Maybe if you have that thunder wave, for example, maybe it has like some physical presence. Maybe it's not just sound. Maybe you can. I see all the Guy Fieri talk in chat. Guy Fieri, I'm sorry. But maybe your thunder wave has a physical shape to it. Maybe when you pound down on the ground, it creates a vision of like a pounding horse, because that's important to your backstory for some reason. That's just kind of a random idea, but you can make these spells work for your character and kind of work on how to imagine the flavor of them without affecting the mechanics. So just keep that in mind overall.
Yeah, and I mean, you can do some pretty ridiculous, like silly things in for bards as well. Like, let's say you're a bard and your instrument is the gong, and that's what your thunder wave is. You just huge gong.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Shatter. But yeah, also at third level, moving on off of spells, because we could go on. We could talk about level 2 spells for an hour.
There's so much.
You also get a feature called expertise, and expertise is huge. Expertise is probably the one thing that you are the best at. So what expertise does is it says you pick 2 of your skills in 5th edition, abilities that your character has, special things they've maybe learned over time. So things like athletics, just how athletic you are, or history is a skill. You get to pick 2 of your skills of the 15 or 16 of, I don't think it's that even that many, but of the 15 or 16 skills, you get to pick 2 of them, and you become twice as good. Basically, you become twice as good at and that bonus continues to scale with you for the rest of the game. So this is a huge, iconic kind of choice for your character, and it can represent a huge, what your character is and who they are. If you choose to have expertise in persuasion, you're moving your character into the party face kind of thing. If you choose expertise in deception, I mean, that still could be the party face kind of deal, but in a very different kind of way. Intimidation. All of these that I just mentioned, persuasion, intimidation, and deception, are charisma-based abilities. Things you're already going to be great at because you're going to have high charisma as a bard.
Yeah, that's the classic. Is the persuasion expertise is kind of the quintessential choice, and you can go with anything. But if you're thinking about being a face, if you're thinking about being a party face, taking either deception or intimidation or persuasion expertise can be a really good choice. But yeah, that's an awesome ability. Expertise just feels great. I love expertise, and rogues get it too. It just feels good.
I mean, not a lot feels better, right, than being level 3, right? And everyone around you, it's I'm gonna roll my persuasion check to barter with the merchant, and all your allies go, and they're I got a 4, and I got a 6, and you're I got a 26.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. There's always if you haven't played D&D, there's always a double take I think you cheated.
Yeah, especially for a new dungeon master. So are you sure that's right? And they look at it holy crap, this is broken.
So moving on.
I'm sorry, Pete. We got to stop. Adrian P in chat. Performance, another phenomenal skill, super iconic to bards. So let's not forget that.
Indeed. Performance is definitely a big one. Just how good you are at doing that thing that you basically are defined by as a person, according to this class. So yeah, performance is a big one.
So Pete, let's briefly talk about bard colleges. You want to jump in?
Yeah, I'll take lore. You want to take valor?
Sure. And you also get this at level 3. So on top of your spells are way better and you have more options.
Yeah, man, crazy.
You're incredible at 2 skills that you choose. You get a bard college, which is similar to the barbarian primal pass they had. So
yes.
Pete, go ahead and jump right into the lore.
So both bard colleges, there's the College of Lore and the College of Valor. From a kind of a flavor point, what colleges are meant to represent is a loose collection of bards with kind of similar interests that kind of group together and discuss and share stories and techniques. They're not literal colleges, I think, in the sense that the word is implied, although they certainly could be in an individual campaign. And I see Reflect in chat says, glamour for the win. Yeah, we're probably not going to touch on all those, but there's some really cool bard colleges in Xanathar's guide. So at level 3, Lore and Valor give very similar abilities. Both give some proficiencies in different things, and both give kind of an upgrade to your bardic inspiration. For the College of Lore, you get to pick out 3 new skills, 3 additional skills. So you already had 3 that you wanted. Now you get 3 more. You're good at so many different things. You're really good at 2 of them, and then because of the skills that you get from your background combined with that, that's 8 skills that you now have accrued, plus maybe a skill that you got from your race. You're just really good at skills.
Just to quickly interrupt, that ties back into that big open space we were talking about earlier, role-playing wise. you got to think, why is my character so good at all these skills?
Yeah.
What backstory have I had that I'm learned everything?
Yeah, I know everything. And they get cutting words. It's kind of an upgrade to their bardic inspiration. It adds new options for it. Basically, what it works is the way it works is when somebody makes an ability check, a damage roll, or an attack roll, you can use your reaction to roll your bardic inspiration and reduce it by that amount. So rather than using it kind of to aid your allies, you can use it to disrupt and throw off your enemies. It's cool. It's fun. I think me and Jeremy were talking about this ability recently. Both of us kind of agree that we wish that this was just something that all bards got, because it's just so fun. It's got that little bit of a trickster vibe to it. There's lots of just if you're kind of a funny player, there's just hijinks.
Swing better, swing better, swing.
Yeah, it's just there's so many hijinks, and there are other ways to RP it as well. You can do it a little bit more seriously. Maybe maybe you just shout an infernal, is I think one of the characters on Critical Role has been doing to mess with people with his vicious mockery, but that could work just as well for a cutting words thing. So there's lots of ways you can do it, but that's basically what the ability does. It's a fun ability.
Absolutely agree. It's fucking pardon. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's what you get for the College of Lore. One thing to just remember of College of Lore, they're about lore. If you're picking a College of Lore bard, generally speaking, you want to think, my character cares about stories, cares about maybe mysteries or lore or information of some kind. And that's super important because that is the kind of the foil to the College of Valor, which is the other bard. Valor is, I want to make these new stories. I want to make these new adventures. Where a College of Lore bard may want to master all of the great musical masterpieces of the world. Mm-hmm. The College of Valor doesn't care about mastering the old classics. He wants to create his own new classic.
Which is an awesome flavor. That's really cool.
Exactly. And I mean, that's really where the two subclasses differ, because otherwise they're fairly similar. At third level, you get a ability like cutting words. You gain, it's called combat inspiration. And basically it allows you to just boost your allies, increase their to hit against armor class. And I think you can also add it to a damage roll that your allies make. So it allows you to use your bardic inspiration in more interesting ways in combat. Just like the lore bard does with cutting words. Cutting words being more defensive, and combat inspiration being less interestingly named, but much more aggressive. Additionally, as a Valor bard, you're going to gain proficiency in all martial weapons and medium armor and shield.
Yeah,
so
huge.
You can run around with your sword and shield wearing your breastplate, and now you're like a mini fighter that also casts spells and sings, and that's where you get the idea that bards can do everything.
That's what we're talking about, is that option from everything. And he'll never be able to quite match the fighter in terms of just raw output, but he just gets spelled, and so he's just got all these other options too, and it's a cool way to play.
Yeah. Exactly. And again, that just opens more open space to how the hell did you master all these weapons and do all these other things that you've learned, that kind of ties into you had a very interesting life as a bard.
Yeah. So at fourth level, as everyone does, you get an ability score increase. You get another cantrip as well, and you get another second level spell slot. Nothing too crazy there. Nothing that we haven't already kind of talked about, just more of what we've talked about. One note on that ability score increase, you're probably just going to want to keep bumping up your charisma or bumping up other ability scores. The only real feat that I think barbarians really kind of want that great weapon master. I think for bards, the only one that really becomes relevant if you're a Valor bard and you're really in combat a lot. You might want the feat Warcaster, which gives you advantage on Constitution saves to concentrate. It lets you cast your spells while you're holding your weapons, and it lets you do spells as opportunity attacks almost. So it gives you kind of a cool tool to help you function as a spellcaster if you're also going to be in the middle of the fray, because traditionally, your spellcasters will be hanging back. So as a Valor Bard, you're usually charging in. So, it just helps you with that particular problem that you kind of start to run into if you're trying to do that build. So that's one to consider. It's called Warcaster. But for the most part, just want to maybe bump up your charisma. Not too much at level 4.
Well, if you're a Valor Bard, you may want to also consider bumping up your dexterity bonus, as that's what you're using to attack most.
Or your strength bonus. I want to make a strength Valor Bard very badly, and I'm probably going to make one soon for a campaign. Don't worry about that.
Moving to 5th level. 5th level is both a bit of a dud level, but it's also an incredibly powerful level. We'll explain that in a second. First, in terms of class features, you don't really get a lot. Your Bardic Inspiration becomes a D8 instead of a D6. It's a little better. And you get an ability called Font of Inspiration. And what that says is when you take a short rest now, all of your Bardic Inspiration die come back. Previously, you'd have to take a long rest. Now it's going to take a short rest. Very similar to the Bard's feature Song of Rest. This doesn't see a lot of play a lot of the time because in a lot of games, short rests aren't utilized a lot in 5th edition, just the way they're done. But like I was saying before, in certain kinds of adventures, like in a classic mega dungeon crawl where you're just going through the dungeon and you're resting up in the rooms of the dungeon real quick, it's a very good feature. Yeah. It's super powerful.
And you get 3rd level spells. Like I said, every other level for spellcasters is big, so 5th level, now you just got these even higher tier spells. Some of the classic ones, you got Clairvoyance, Dispel Magic, Major Image, Speak with Dead. Those are just some examples, but there's lots of cool 3rd level spells. It's a big deal. It's a huge deal every time you move up into a new spell slot tier. And again, a lot of the excitement of 5th level comes from picking out those 3rd level spells. And you get 2 of those. But yeah, I don't know. It's just I think the Bardic Inspiration, the way that it's designed, it feels good every time it increases. And I don't know. It's just like a lot of small buffs at these early levels that they add up. 5th level's a pretty big power spike again for bards.
Yep. That bumps us to 6th level. Actually, there's one thing I want to note about 3rd level spells or 5th level as a bard. This is where the levels get confusing. At 5th level, for other spellcasters, like the Wizard or the Sorcerer, you gain access to Fireball, to Lightning Bolt. Very, very big, iconic, and powerful abilities. The Bard does not have those spell options.
Yeah, the Bard does not get a big...
has a complete lack of offensive level 3 spells.
Yeah.
So that is a big point of your spellcaster. You have a lot of utility abilities, like you can speak with the dead, you can dispel other people's magical abilities, you can create large illusions with Major Image, but you're going to lack those big combat spells. And that's just a facet of the Bard spellcasting. That being said, that's remedied at level 6, at least for the Lore Bard.
For the Lore Bard, yeah.
So at level 6, you get another feature for your college. So Lore gets one feature and Valor gets another. Pete, you want to cover Lore?
Yeah, sure. You're going to get additional magical secrets, which is weird that you get additional magical secrets when you haven't gotten them yet. But the Lore, every bard is going to get this ability eventually. But what magical secrets does is it lets you pick out 2 spells from any class in the game. You can take 2 of anything of your choice. It's really cool. It's fun. It's a little bit overwhelming, I think, for new players because there are so many choices. But I think these spells, more than anything else, they really let you start to put in the flavor of what makes your bard unique. These choices are really important. For example, maybe you're a bard, kind of like a tribal bard from the far north, who plays like war drums and lives up there. You could pick some powerful cold magic spells that will reflect that part of your heritage. So there's just so many options. There's more options than we could possibly cover, but that is what the Lore Bard gets is 2 spells of their choice.
Or you could pick very iconic spells like Fireball and Lightning Bolt that are just very powerful abilities. Counterspell, a very powerful ability, albeit much more situational. It's just huge. Valor Bard at level 6 gets not as interesting an ability. They get extra attack. Every other martial class gets extra attack at 5th level. So once you hit level 5 as a Valor Bard, that's a really it's not a fun level.
Mhm.
I'm just going to say that outright. It's actually unfun to play a Valor Bard at 5th level because everyone around you has gotten big damaging spells or an extra attack.
And you've gotten your actually no, there's nothing. You're a little bit behind the curve.
A really weak level for Valor Bard, but once you hit level 6 and you get that extra attack, you're back up to speed. You're attacking twice instead of once. And it definitely helps to catch you back up with everyone else.
Yeah, it's just another kind of mechanical buff. Doesn't add a lot in terms of the flavor of the class.
And before we move on to the 7th level spell, 7th level ability.
7th level spell, so good.
That magical secrets ability that the Lore Bard gets, the other bards do get it at level 10.
Yeah, it takes a while.
Lore Bard gets that 4 levels early,
which is a big deal.
Boon for the class. So, Pete, what do the bards get at 7th level?
They get a 4th level spell. That is it. You get a 4th level spell. I think you might get another 3rd level spell too, but that's it. And that's kind of what starts to happen to casters as they move up. The spells become so powerful that they're just what you get. There's really iconic spells at this level. You got Confusion for bards. You got Polymorph. Dimension Door, big teleport ability. You got Greater Invisibility, which is like invisibility, but when you attack people, you don't become visible anymore. So this spell is going to be like, it's going to be kind of your combat choice, like Polymorph. Oh, I polymorph myself into like what a dinosaur, a T-Rex. Yeah, I poly myself into a T-Rex. I am a monster at roughly the same power level as we should be fighting as a party. Like these are huge buffs. So that's
Greater Invisibility just means as a Valor Bard specifically, you are now an invisible man with an invisible sword fighting whoever you're fighting, or woman, whatever, fighting whoever you're fighting. Huge disadvantage to them. Major advantage to you.
Big deal.
Yeah.
They get Compulsion. Compulsion is a spell that can only be used by bards. It's the 3rd of our 4 bard unique spells. Basically what it does is it forces people within a certain distance of you to move in a direction of your choice. It's kind of a weird one. I don't know. I don't know. It's just Compulsion. It's cool. There's some flavor. I'm sure you can come up with some hijinks with it where you make people take lots of opportunity attacks, but that's what the bards get at 4th level. And that is the bard all the way through level 7. We're going to run through, I think, some of the rest of the power, but most of their power is more spells or improvements for things they already have.
Yeah, I mean, at 8th level, they're going to get more ability scores. At 9th level, they're going to get 5th level spells, which, at that point, you're opening a big jar of trouble, just because there are fewer and fewer spells as you get to higher levels, and so the wizards and the sorcerers are going to share the same spells a lot of the time as the bard. Mm-hmm. So the bard's going to get those big, powerful spells at those levels too, just because there aren't that many spells.
Yeah, they're just the options narrow more and more as you get higher up.
At 10th level, you get magical secrets, letting you steal spells from anyone.
Mm-hmm. Big if you're a Valor Bard, but as a Lore Bard, you've already kind of taken the really important one. The first 2 were the most important.
You get a better bardic inspiration, which just kind of happens. You're going to learn more cantrips as you level up, so don't feel bad if you picked a damaging cantrip early that you're just not using as much anymore later in the game.
Yep. 11th level, you're going to get your 6th level spells. 12th level, another ability score increase. 13th level, 7th level spells, and your Song of Rest improves. Just kind of buffs on your features. 14th level is where we start getting something new again.
But
and those
before
are
we dive into that, there's one last thing, and that is the Valor Bard is never going to be as good in melee as a fighter, because all fighters and other martial classes that get extra attack get a 3rd extra attack eventually, and the Valor Bard doesn't get that.
Yeah, they're never going to get that, which makes sense because they shouldn't, because they have this whole spellcasting
They have
suite.
the whole spellcasting. Yeah, exactly.
But the Valor Bard will not get that. They get something interesting now at 14th level. This is their kind of their capstone, so to speak, for your subclasses. So for your Lore Bard, you get something called Peerless Skill. Personally, this is another ability I feel like all bards should just eventually get. It just seems right, and it wouldn't seem like it was really important for it to just be on one thing, because it uses your Bardic Inspiration resource again, so it would just be more options rather than additional power. But basically what it means is when you make an ability check, you can use your Bardic Inspiration to add the number rolled to your own ability check, which feels cool.
You can inspire yourself.
Yep, you are so inspiring that even you are impressed. The mechanics just have a lot of flavor like that. I don't know, I just like the idea of that. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward, but combined with the fact that you already have expertise in things, at that level you're probably going to have a +5 in charisma, and you have a huge proficiency bonus, so you're going to already be rolling like in the 30s on occasion, and then you're adding on your huge Bardic Inspiration D10 on top of that. Like, you can get some insane rolls with that.
Basically, you just will never fail your checks.
Pretty much.
And that's Lore Bard. Valor Bard is going to get something called Battle Magic. And basically what that says is whenever you cast a spell, using a bonus action, you can make a little stabby attack, one attack with your sword. That really isn't going to make a ton of difference. If you want to use your sword a lot, I highly recommend the cantrip Green Flame Blade or Booming Blade. Both can be found in the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide, published by Wizards of the Coast.
Cool stuff there.
Are if you want to play a character that attacks with a sword and uses magic to enhance that sword, those two spells are essential. They aren't optional anymore. Prior to those spells being published, you would usually just be weaker. But now with those, you're actually pretty strong. So, that's all.
And that's the Valor Bard. It's not super exciting, in my opinion, just because usually you're going to have tons of stuff you want to do with your bonus action anyway, like Inspire, for example. So getting to do an attack as a bonus action when you spell, I'm just not huge into it, but I'm sure there are situations where you'll be really glad you have it, like if you run out of Bardic Inspiration. And moving through, basically everything else is just more of what you already have. Bardic Inspiration gets up to a D12, another ability score. You get your 9th level spell at 17th level. This is always exciting for casters. It's like when you make a caster, you're making them on kind of the dream that someday I will cast a 9th level spell. And all the 9th level spells are cool. Bard has one unique one. It's called Power Word Heal. I think it's probably the least exciting of all of the 9th level spells. I don't know if you agree with me on that one, Jeremy. But
no, I think there are less exciting ones. Maybe.
I couldn't think off the top of my head. But basically what it is you fully heal someone and you remove all status and conditions from them. It's very powerful, no two ways about it. But that's a spell that only bards can cast, which is interesting. And with your magical secrets, keep in mind that when you hit 9th level, you have 4 choices from the bard, but you have all the choices because you have, by 18th level, you get 2 more magical secrets. So you can get Wish, which is the dream spell. Everyone loves Wish.
Spell's a 5th level spell.
You got me. Yay! A little D&D joke for all of you out there. And then the Bard's Capstone. You get another magical secrets, you get another ability score, and then you get the Capstone Superior Inspiration. It's so unexciting to me. Basically, the way it works is at 20th level, when you roll initiative and you have run out of Bardic Inspiration, you regain a single use of Bardic Inspiration. It's just, I think, a really disappointing and underwhelming, I've played this bard all the way up to 20th level, and I get 1 inspiration when I enter combat. I don't know. It's
the barbarian becomes superhumanly strong, gets 26 strength and 26 constitution, and the bard is like, you gain 1 bardic inspiration die back sometimes.
I think that a possible way to change it, and if I was playing this in my home game and someone got this ability,
I don't know if we should start talking about homebrew right now.
I'm just saying, I think a good way to change this would just be to say you get all your uses back. And then even then it's still boring. We talked about this a little bit last time, but like,
I'm sorry.
Did you laughing at plunder?
I'm laughing at infinite tacos in the chat. As a bard, the only way to cast 9th level spells is to yell out the name of the spell like fighters in an anime.
Power word, heal.
And we both made ridiculous. Anyway.
It's very good. It's very good. I don't know. It's not what I want in a capstone, but you know, I have nothing to say about it.
But yeah, anyway, I think that just about wraps it up. We're pretty much out of time here. Even with our little technical difficulties, we're actually pretty much right on point given that. Bam, thank you everyone for hanging out in the chat.
Yeah.
We hope that this conversation has been insightful and interesting. And if there's something you want us to cover, let us know by either tweeting at us, that is DnD_time on Twitter, or leaving a message here in the chat or in our Discord server. Links are below, unless you're on YouTube, which case there aren't links below yet, but I should do that. Wait, all that good stuff.
Oh wait, Jeremy, I had a brief amendment to our discussion of last week's on the Barbarian capstone. If I could just throw this out there, because I think it's important.
Let's talk about the Barbarian.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to say Barbarian also gets infinite rages when they hit level 20, which is radical. That's it.
Okay. Well, guys, there you have it.
That's it. Sorry, everyone.
Series, you'll slowly, throughout the course of the next however many classes, learn all of Pete's secret opinions on the Barbarian. But with that, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next week when we talk about something that isn't a class. We're going to take a break from classes just for one episode, and then we're going to jump back on. We think every 2 or 3 classes we're going to jump on.
Yeah, we don't want it to get repetitive to have you all coming in here just talking about a class each week. So we're going to do something else. Haven't quite decided what it is, but it won't be a class, and then probably the week after we'll be in on that cleric.
Yeah, they infinite rage because they aren't bards. Exactly reflected, Penny. Exactly. Well done.
I guess
Sammy, what do we want to talk about next week? I know you had a couple things.
I had a couple ideas.
Right now.
I didn't feel super strongly about running those, but a couple ideas I had included just talking about skill checks, how and when to use them, or making characters that are interesting that don't necessarily have tragic pasts. Both of those I think are good places to, I don't know, I could talk about those things for a lot. If anyone has any thoughts. Infinite Taco says running online games versus meat space games. I love the term meat space. I've not heard that before, and that's a good topic.
Wonderful. Hashtag meat space. Oh God. No, it is an EAT. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's
all right.
it's what you thought it was. It's what you thought it was.
But yeah, I guess basically, unless you guys really want us to talk about something else, next week will be the not so tragic hero. So tune in, and yeah, we love you all. Thanks for everyone who came to hang out and for talking in the chat. Make sure to check out Macabre Derek. He will be playing running Curse of Strahd. He may actually have already started. That or he'll be starting very shortly. No, he's starting very shortly, or in an hour or something. Check him out on Twitch.
Yeah,
he's Macabre.
He's running that tonight.
It should be awesome. Last week was very interesting. It was. Well, I can't say we. Jeez, when I'm on DnDTime, this is weird. He started off with a bang. Is I think how I'm going to put it, and I think that all the players learned a valuable lesson, or maybe they didn't. We'll find out how much they learned this week.
Well, there's some wolves. I don't know. I remember there being some wolves involved.
No, there were some wolves. But yeah, with that, Pete, I'm cueing you to start the.
Wait, I do what? I'm Pete.
And I'm Jeremy.
And this is Pete and Jeremy's DnDTime Talks. I thought we were cutting it. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody. I love you.